So let's describe this. There's a lot of people that don't really know what that VR world is all about. So we actually get to walk into the Hard Rock without going into the Hard Rock.
Exactly. So in the case of the Hard Rock, we built out several different room types, and they wanted to use it for design review. So what we did in this case, and it was super fun because we got to be really deeply more involved in it than any other project we had to date, right? Where these guys would have these big meetings with like 15 or 20 executives in the room. One of them would be in the Vive. Everybody else would be looking at a 70-inch TV to see what this person's looking at. And they would use it for design review. They'd be like, I don't know about this tile. Maybe we could move this. Maybe we could move this painting. And I don't like this furniture. Let's switch it out. Let's try something else. And then there was a situation with the drywall where there was drywall that wasn't thick enough, and we basically found out that we saved them a lot of money.
Can you hear the drumming? There's a revolution coming. Fire things that turn me on, drag my dark into the dawn. Can you hear the drumming? There's a revolution coming.
And now I have Bill Fishkin. He's the co-founder and president of Theia Interactive. How you doing, Bill?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for making the trip out here. We want to get to know you personally. We also want to get to know a little bit about your company. What is Theia Interactive?
Theia Interactive specializes in fully interactive, high visual fidelity walkthroughs for AEC, which is architectural engineering construction.
Is it virtual reality type
It's
stuff?
virtual
or augmented
reality. We're doing a lot of augmented
high-tech
reality
stuff.
too. All high-tech stuff, yeah.
Okay, so thinking about the business, right? So you have walkthroughs for architecture. Describe a success story for us.
Okay, so, and actually NVIDIA is one of our partners, so
Okay.
we actually have this as a case study coming out, I think, in the next week. We worked on Hard Rock Hotel Casino. Maybe you've heard of them.
I have heard of Hard Rock. Yeah, we've got a business that sells to a lot of Hard Rocks.
Do you?
Yeah, absolutely.
So maybe you worked on the same one we did
it's
in
very possible.
Hollywood, Florida.
Possibly,
It's
yeah.
a 32-story guitar.
Yeah. Well, everything we do is in the casino industry. Well, not
Right.
everything. A high percentage of what we do is in the gaming industry. And I know Hard Rock's a good customer. So I can't say specifically that we were working side by side, but it's
Is
possible.
it a secret?
Yeah. What's that?
Is it a secret?
It is. It could be a trade secret.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
All right. So anyway, the Hard Rock, Hollywood, Florida, it's a $2 billion project. We didn't get all that money. We got a tiny bit of money, but it was cool. But what we did was we did a full walkthrough of all the room types. And it was interesting because it was the first project that we had that was early enough. When we first started, we were looking at the other end of the business where we're like, hey, you're building these houses. Maybe instead of building all these model homes, you can build one model home instead of 5, save the money, and build a full VR walkthrough of the other models.
Right. So let's describe this. There's a lot of people that don't really know what that VR world is all about. So we actually get to walk into the Hard Rock without going into the Hard Rock.
Exactly. So in the case of the Hard Rock, we built out several different room types, and they wanted to use it for design review.
Okay.
Right. So what we had learned through that project is every construction project has about a 5 to 8% of the budget allocated for change orders. And change orders, from our theory originally, was most change orders are made because of a lack of good visual information, right? If you don't know that table is that color, and someone just shows you a flat image of you know what I mean? You don't know the scale of the table.
Yeah, you weren't able to really
Right.
visualize it.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and when you think about it, like the construction market, they're working off of the same tool set they've worked off of, really for the last 30 years.
Blueprints, stuff
Blueprints, they do, they'll do a render, right? But a render is a flat image, right? I can show you a photo of my yard, but you're not going to know what it really looks like because it's a flat image. So it's, you know what I mean? The scale, the scope, everything. It's different because it's flat, right? With VR, you're able to throw on, like we use HTC Vive,
Okay.
which is, again, it's a high visual fidelity experience. So we're
So
trying
I get to put on these goggles or something like
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
and
you
then
put on-
and it feels like I'm inside the Hard Rock.
Yeah.
I can look around and see where the doors are going to be, where the furniture is going to
Exactly.
be. Okay.
Yeah. So what we did in this case, and it was super fun because we got to be really deeply more involved in it than any other project we had to date, right? Where these guys would have these big meetings with like 15 or 20 executives in the room. One of them would be in the Vive. Everybody else would be looking at a 70-inch TV to see what this person's looking at. And they would use it for design review. They'd be like, I don't know about this tile. Maybe we could move this. Maybe we could move this painting. and I don't like this furniture. Let's switch it out. Let's try something else. And then there was a situation with the drywall where there was drywall that wasn't thick enough, and we basically found out that we saved them a lot of money.
Save the change orders. Now, who's the customer? Is it the actual end user, the casino, or the guy that owns the property, or is it somebody who's at the architectural level?
In this case, that was with a company called Suffolk Construction out of Boston. It was their co-company with Yates, which is another big construction firm. So it was Suffolk Yates. So they're the builder.
Okay.
So they're the developer builder, but we're working in conjunction with the owners. So it went really high level, which was great. I mean, this was hitting like C-suite executives, and they were reviewing it.
Cool.
So it was.
So
we saved them a lot of money.
Well, let's talk about the beginning when you first launched the company. You had this marketing background. You own a marketing company.
Yeah.
Your business partner has got animation type experience.
Well, yeah,
and then
for
what
Theia,
brought you together?
So I knew Mark back in the 90s when Mark was in a band, and we were doing a sort of a different kind of agency where we were solely working with the music industry. And Mark and I lost touch, and then I heard he moved back to town. We reconnected. He was teaching animation, or still has a couple classes at the university up in Chico, and we were kicking around different ideas. He's got great stories. He worked on Avatar. He worked on Hobbit 2 and 3. He's worked on Garfield, which I like to remind him of on a regular basis to deflate the ego a bit. But he's an incredibly talented guy, and we were kicking around different ideas. And then one day, I'm literally playing Minecraft with my then 8-year-old.
Okay.
Who was walking me through this Frank Lloyd Wright-esque home that he built in Minecraft world, right?
Okay.
And having a lot of real estate clients in the past, and knowing their struggles and what they do and what they deal with and how they spend their money, it was interesting because he's literally walking me through this thing going, oh, this is your room, Dad, and here's a fridge for you, and here's a bed, and isn't it, you know what I mean? He's walking me through this architecturally wonderful home, and I'm like, this is super cool. He kind of sounds like me, which I had fun with. And then this would be great for actual real estate or construction in general. It just can't look like Minecraft.
So your son was the inspiration.
Yeah. So I've always been a gamer.
8-year-old.
I've always been a gamer. And you look at modern video game technology, and it's amazing, right? Like, if you're Fallout, Call of Duty, all these games, like the environments are so realistic.
No doubt.
And I've always been a bit of an architecture nerd anyway. So I brought the idea to Mark. I'm like, hey, what if we did this? And he was like, well, I like that idea, but I don't know how to do it. He's like, but I got 2 guys that just graduated, right? So he brings them into my office in Chico. We have a couple meetings, and then literally 2 weeks later, we started a company.
So what was the feeling you launch a company like that? Obviously, there's a lot of excitement, but then there's all these challenges that always crop up with every business. What was the mood when you started? Was it just enthusiasm, or was there any fear or trepidation?
Well, there's always that. But I mean, since I was 21, I've only worked for myself. So I think you kind of suppress that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
After you've done it for a while. And, you're like, well, hopefully this works. I think it'll work. I think it's a good idea. We just need to get in front of the right people so they could see it. And then they could kind of share the vision, right? So for the first, I would say there's been like 2 chapters so far in the Theiaverse, right? Chapter 1 was we were going to home builders, residential home builders, and people that I knew because I had prior relationships with them in the marketing world, where we would say, hey, you got this great building in San Francisco. You're staffing it with all the agents to try to sell the homes. Let's build this out. Let's allow you to have all the configurable options, right? Because the money is in the options, right? If they do the upgrade in the kitchen,
okay,
right, they're going to end up making more money,
right?
And if you've ever remodeled the kitchen, you kind of want to do that before you move in, because if you don't, it's a nightmare.
Yeah.
So we spent the first year and a half trying to do that. We got a couple, and it was super slow. And we're kind of getting to the point where you're like, I just don't know if this is working. And the software we use is Unreal Engine. It's made by Epic Games, which also makes Fortnite. So one day, lo and behold, I walk out into the larger part of our office, and the guys are gathered around one of the monitors, and they're watching this like live broadcast with a couple dudes. I'm like, what are you guys watching? He's like, Unreal Engine's launching Enterprise. They're working with NASA and McLaren. And I'm just like, who are these guys? And they're like, oh, that's Simon and Doug. I'm like, so I go find their last names, and then I send them a random tweet like 15 minutes later. A week later, we're having coffee that turned into beers with those guys for about a 6-hour meeting in San Francisco, and we turned into the first, one of the first enterprise customers for Unreal Engine.
Okay.
So that changed everything instantly because, Unreal, it's a multi-billion-dollar company. They create this amazing software that allows us to do what we do. And what they did was they brought us to the right people, which was incredible because it's always who you know,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, those connections.
Right. So these guys, like literally instantly, they're like, all right, it's March 2016. SIGGRAPH 2016 is coming up in August. We want you to build this luxury hotel room with Suffolk Construction and the Foundry. And Foundry is a big software maker. They make probably 99.9% of any of the movies you've seen or TV shows you've seen in the last 10 years that have had any special effects have Foundry software in their workflow. So they're like Adobe, but for film and video, right?
Yeah.
Or film and television, sorry. So we start working with them. We're working with Suffolk. We're building this luxury hotel room. We premiere it at SIGGRAPH, and then all of a sudden, there's more intros, and then all of a sudden we're working with NVIDIA, we're working with HTC, we're working with HP, and we're getting them as customers, and they're hiring us to actually build things for trade shows. We're then getting introduced because they're forwarding people to us. We work with Mohawk Industries, Mohawk Carpet. They're the largest flooring manufacturer in the world. We've done multiple projects with them.
So let's talk about the stage the company's in now. You guys, have you guys had to go out and raise money? Is the business getting ready to go on a fast growth pace?
Yeah, we raised money early on. We stopped raising money in early 16. So we didn't raise much. We raised about 200, right? So we went through that, and that was a nightmare because we ended up, let me back up a little bit. So we premiered everything at launch in 2015 in March. So basically a year before the Unreal relationship started. We ended up getting office space in the Twitter building in San Francisco at a co-working space, which was super fun and exciting. And then our lives turned into Silicon Valley on HBO for a year. And we would have one meeting after another with venture capital people. We sit down with Joe Montana for 90 minutes, had subsequent meetings with him because he has a venture fund. So, we actually almost made Joe Montana sick in early VR in 2015.
He got dizzy?
Well, he did say he took a lot of hits to the head, so
Oh.
he gets dizzy easily.
Yeah, interesting.
Anyway, but he was great. And, that was obviously a highlight of the early times of Theia. But we kept having these meetings, and we knew that we wanted to do services and then develop software, right? And all these people that we were having meetings with were trying to push us in a different direction, and it just didn't feel natural. So by probably the third quarter of 2016, when we're still having these meetings over and over and over again, we kind of looked down the road and we went, I think we have enough on the table where if we just stop going to San Francisco, every freaking week, we can maybe actually make money.
Raise money from our customers. What a concept,
What
huh?
an idea. So we did that. We cut off these meetings that we were having. We're like, you know what? We changed our mind. We're not going to do this round.
Wow.
We're going to suck it up and just self-fund.
Start making sales and making money on your
So,
sales.
And it worked. I mean, in the first quarter of 17, we made more money than all of 16.
Wow.
It wasn't a lot, but
Hey.
it was still more. And then in the second, so we are on 8 quarters of profitability,
Nice.
which puts us in a different space now because we are talking with one or two about putting some money in.
So what's the company look like in 5 years?
Oof. In 5 years, I would say multiple offices around the world. I think we're looking at Sacramento as a potential
Atta
second
baby.
space. We're looking at Canada because Mark, one of my co-founders, has dual citizenship, U.S. and
Okay.
Canada, and there's some pretty wonderful tax incentives for Canada, which I
Okay.
didn't know about. So we've been talking with some pretty high-level people there, which is fun. UK, definitely. We've got some pretty big announcements happening at Autodesk University coming
Okay.
up in 2.5 weeks.
Okay, so you can't break the news here.
What I can't say is we're working with a major hardware manufacturer, and if I said their name, you would know it right away.
Okay.
And we're talking with them about a go-to-market strategy, which is
Nice.
exciting, which will put us kind of worldwide just with that to sell our software and services. So, I mean, ideally, 5 years from now, we've got multiple tool sets out there for the other companies in the space to use, because that's the other thing that we've really worked on for the last year and a half is we are seeing problems in the workflow, right? And we can't do all the jobs out there because there's millions of jobs out there for what we do. But what we can do is we can provide tools to make the workflow easier. So optimization, right, of files is a big deal to get it to run properly in a real-time environment. So when you take like a Revit model or a 3D file of a scene of a building, right? So we have one project right now for Pasadena, right? So we wrote this software for ourselves on a project that I can't mention in Boston that I know you were in on too.
Okay.
And they gave us these files. There were 40 gigs of files, right? And it was mental. You're like, how do we even get this into a real-time environment? So we started with Unreal Engine launched a program called Datasmith, which is basically their way to get architectural or manufacturing files into a real-time environment. So you could run it in VR. You could basically run it like it's a video game for enterprise, right? So Datasmith runs with there's a Python option, right? The software language. So you can make tools with Python. So one of our guys was like, I think we can make a tool set for this. Let's make an optimization toolkit to help this run better. So we got through that project because of the developer team, that we have in-house that was able to figure that out and actually make this happen. So now we can take, for example, this Pasadena file, right? This Pasadena file has every 3D file or scene has polygons, right? So in this case, there were 350,000 actors, right? It's 350,000 different pieces to this outdoor scene with this building, right? 350,000 pieces running through Datasmith runs at 1 frame a second, right? Barely runs. And it took hours to get into Datasmith, right? Or to get into Unreal from Datasmith, right? So am I getting too nerdy?
Well, 30 frames per second is real time, right?
Well, 60 frames per second is real time.
Oh, okay.
90 in VR is better because 60 might get you sick.
Yeah.
So anyway, what we did was so optimization is minimizing, right? So we want to take this polygon count and lower it. So we took this polygon count of 350,000 actors down to 2,000 with the software we created.
Okay.
So it's a huge, so instead of taking 5 hours to get this thing running at 1 frame a second, it took 15 minutes. It's running at 102.
Nice.
So we're just going into alpha on that right now.
All right, so we only have a minute left. Maybe just closing thoughts. The next guy in line, somebody who's thinking about entrepreneurship. You've been doing it since you were a young man, and you've chosen business partners. Now your company is blowing up, going international. Advice to the next guy in line.
Just try to minimize distraction as much as possible. That's the main thing. There's always these other ancillary opportunities that could lead you in a different direction that might not be the right direction. It's okay to change course on the way, but make sure it fits with where you're trying to take the entire vision. I have another thing.
Yeah.
You want to know?
Yes.
It's pretty cool. So I have this agency business. And when I met you at the AR VR forum, I also met George Foreman Jr. On our way out, I ended up getting locked in the stairwell with George Foreman Jr., Tiffany, and what's his name, the lawyer?
I'm not sure.
Fred Penny.
Oh, Fred,
so
yeah.
we get locked in the stairwell. So I'm locked in the stairwell with Fred Penny and George Foreman Jr. for 20 minutes. George was already pretty into the Theia stuff we were doing. We had subsequent conversations after that. We did get out of the stairwell, obviously. We were in there long enough to talk about who we'd eat first.
You got locked
basically.
into the stairwell.
At-
you didn't just
Golden
hang
One.
out there and talk.
Well, we hung out there and talked for 20 minutes, and then
Yeah.
we figured out our way out.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, yeah.
But we are also, we just signed papers where we're actually launching an agency with George.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And my other son actually named that one. So that was exciting.
So your son has been inspirational in
All
many
three
of
of my
your
kids have been,
opportunities. Oh, that's awesome. Well,
So we're launching it, and I think we're launching it in Sacramento first. So
very cool. Look forward to hearing more about that, Bill. Thanks for coming on the show. Thanks for sharing your information, your story. Look forward to seeing the growth of this marketing company here in Sacramento, and hopefully Theia Interactive at some point as well.
yeah, I think you'll see us down here too.
I love it. If you like our entrepreneurial stories, if you like the messages that we bring that inspire, if you want a little more Mark Haney, not everybody does, but if you do, feel free to subscribe. Feel free to be part of our community, engage, comment, share. I want to get to know you better. You want to get to know me better. Follow me on all our social media platforms at The Mark Haney. I look forward to knowing you better, and let's get to know each other better so we can help build these businesses that we love.